concerns this morning over tens of thousands of autistic children who've been waiting months, even years, for assessment and support.
Yes, demand for services has rocketed by over 300% since the pandemic. And a new report has found that more than 1 in 4 parents have waited over 3 years to receive support for their autistic child. Well, joining us now is former Children's Commissioner for England, Anne Longfield. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. This is a report, I think it's a really important report. It's not before time. Just if you can, if you could spell out the key findings from the report.
Well, this is a report from the new Centre for Young Lives, which is an organisation I've set up in partnership with Northern Universities, the N8. And what it finds is, as you say, that there's been this huge increase in the referrals of children for autistic assessment for autism. Now, that is making the system completely buckle. It was already under huge pressure. And parents and children are having to wait, as you say, months and years. Not surprisingly, parents say this is often because children aren't getting support they need in school. And only a quarter of children who are autistic say they're happy at school. And this, of course, is leaving children in this kind of no man's land for really extensive periods of time, really affecting their mental health and meaning they just can't progress in school. So it's something which has a devastating impact on both children and their families.
Yeah, that's a really good point you make, Anne. I spoke to a friend yesterday who's been trying to navigate this system. The word she used a lot was slog and battle. Yeah. But the point is, it doesn't just have an impact on the children, it is on the whole family who are struggling to deal with this. And the knock-on effects in terms of mental health and family harmony are huge.
That's right. I mean, the stress for the family is enormous. You know, there'll be a lot of distress from that child about being in school and everyday life. But many parents say it's just a nightmare. You know, some parents give up their jobs. Some parents just slog on, as you say, almost getting to kind of expert level to navigate their way through the system. And of course, that means that children not only will be very aware of all that, but just won't be able to get through those vital years of schooling. They're completely held back in terms of their education, but also really suffer in terms of their own mental health.
Can I just ask you, for people who are watching this and we band around the term autism, it's a spectrum disorder, isn't it? So for parents who see their child is slightly different or they have problems coping at school, do you want to just outline the key symptoms that kids with autism would have?
So children who are autistic, and of course it is a spectrum there, they will process things in different ways. They will experience their environment in different ways. So a lot of children, and let's remember this is a big increase since the pandemic, a lot of children would have had all the impact of the shock of COVID and the pandemic, the isolation at home, and then are back into the busy classrooms, which many will find really difficult to cope with. At the same time, schools are under more and more pressure to support children to catch up. So there's kind of less and less time. And what it also shows is that there aren't just the services around to be able to intervene and help when it's first spotted. And one of the recommendations here is that you don't leave it to, you know, crisis point where there has to be a medical diagnosis. Actually, let's make schools more neurodiverse friendly so all children can feel comfortable there.
I mean, in terms of the process, and it strikes me that, you know, that there are issues around funding, major issues around funding for this, but also the way in which the system is structured, because either a parent or a school might suggest a needs assessment is required. That takes a long time. You sometimes have to go to appeal over it. Needs are finally assessed after that wait. You might then have to appeal the plan that has been proposed before anything is actually put in place. I mean, we're talking about huge delays at every stage of this process. And parents, families who are just, you know, feel like they're hitting a brick wall.
That's right. I mean, it's a process which just isn't fit for purpose anymore. The route to getting support is through this very narrow bottleneck where a diagnosis and an assessment needs to take place before support is kind of released, and that isn't always the case either, just to say. So what we're saying is, let's take a step back. Let's look at making the environment children are in much more neurodiverse friendly. So children can flourish in school, because most autistic children will be able to flourish in mainstream schools with the right support. Let's give training to teachers so they can spot the signs and know how to respond. And let's take those assessments into school where children are, rather than putting them through a process where they have to go off to health, go through their process and come back. Let's just try to find ways of supporting children as soon as we can see the signs that they need extra help. So we can prevent them having to go through this long-winded, endless and really, really damaging process.
Anne Longfield, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning and talking us through the findings of that report.